Okay, it is 6 o'clock, meeting call to order. Okay, so today is City Council meeting, April 16th, 2024. This meeting is being broadcast via Zoom. City Clerk Gazetta, please take the roll call, please.
Councilmember Barbadillo,
Here.
Vice Mayor Chua, Councilmember Lian,
Here.
Councilmember Fan,
He's on, I'm assuming he's on Zoom.
yes, Councilmember Fan is available on Zoom.
Okay.
He just disconnected.
Okay,
Mayor Montano.
and I am here. Thank you very much. So today we have a request, according to Assembly Bill 2449, consider Council Member Anthony Phan's request to appear remotely pursuant to AB 2449 and authorize the City Council to accept public comments remotely at this April 16, 2024 meeting of the Milpitas City Council. So, City Attorney, what that recommendation, what's the next step?
Thank you, Mayor. Before we proceed, I believe Councilmember Fan should disclose to the council the nature of his medical emergency that allows him to appear remotely under AB 2449.
Councilmember Fan is still disconnected from Zoom.
Recommendation, City Attorney, just wait.
If Councilmember Fan is not available, we can move on with the rest of the agenda and potentially move this item to after closed session.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay. And so before we adjourn to closed session, City Attorney, please brief the public on the closed session items for today.
Thank you, Mayor. Today you have one closed session item, labor negotiations pursuant to GC 54957.6. Rick Bolanos is the agency designated representative. The bargaining units are Leona UPEC, including ProTech MEA, MidCon, IAFF, and MPOA.
Thank you very much for that. So I will call for public comment on the closed session items. Please note tonight's public comment will be limited to 2 minutes. So, City Clerk,
We have no public speaker cards.
is there anyone from the public wanting to speak on closed session items? Seeing none, we are going to adjourn to closed session. Thank you. Okay, is he gonna be able?
Yeah, he's on.
Okay, okay, right. Okay, so we're waiting for Councilmember Lynn. Meeting call to order. We're waiting for one person. We will have our city attorney report out in closed session. Okay, we're waiting for one more person. Okay. Welcome back. Okay, so now we will get started. So we'll have our city attorney report out from closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. You guys considered the conference with labor negotiator Rick Bolanos regarding LIUNA, UPEC, PROTEC, MEA, MidCon, IAFF, and MPOA. There's nothing to report out at this time.
Thank you, City Attorney Mutsalpasi. And so now I will call this meeting to order. Today, we are going to ask for the request to appear remotely pursuant to AB 2449 and authorize the council to accept public comments remotely at the April 16th, 2024 meeting of the Milpitas City Council. And this is to ask Councilmember Fan to be able to participate in this meeting. City Attorney?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. At this time, I believe Councilmember Fan can disclose the nature of his medical emergency, and the council can vote on whether to allow the remote appearance.
Thank you
Yes,
for
thank,
that.
thank you, esteemed colleagues. As much as I would like to be there physically in person with all of you today, unfortunately, I do have a family medical emergency that I have to tend to in Southern California. So hoping you will approve my request to appear remotely and participate in the council discussion today. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for that. And I'm hoping that your family and you will be well. So the recommendation is to go ahead and ask for the vote to allow him to be able to participate remotely. Is there a motion? Councilmember Lin,
Motion to approve Councilmember Fan's appear remotely for this meeting.
is there a second? And it was motioned by Councilmember Lin and seconded by Councilmember Barbadillo. So let's call for the vote.
Councilmember Barbadillo,
Aye.
Councilmember Leon,
Aye.
Mayor Montano.
And I am an aye. Thank you for that. And so
So-
now,
So the motion carries. At this time, Councilmember Fan, we would request that you disclose anyone over the age of 18 who is in the room with you at this time and your relationship to that person. Or those people.
There are no parties over the age of 18 in the room with me presently.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, so now we will move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Are any council members would like to lead Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Barbadillo, would you like to lead? Okay. All right, everyone, let's rise. Flag of the United States. One nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice. Thank you very much for that. And so now I'll do an invocation. I have invited Pastor Jennifer Chapman to do the invocation for the city. Welcome. Thank you.
Father, in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ of Nazareth, we thank you for this time to be in your presence. We ask now for the wisdom and the guidance and the integrity of your government leaders. But Father, every decision that's made will be from your throne, and that will be made, God, in decent and in order, and that you will be glorified and honored, to come together in unity and oneness, to build up, lift up, and glorify your city. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Thank you. Thank you for those kind words. And now I will do the presentations for Earth Day, Arbor Day, and National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. And if my council members would like to join me, that would be great. If not, stay here. Welcome, everyone. Happy Tuesday. So the first one will be Earth Day. First, the Earth Day was first held in 1970. Earth Day was created to increase awareness of the issues affecting the environment in which we live. The global theme for Earth Day is 2024 is Planet versus Plastics, aiming to raise awareness of plastic pollution, reduce single-use plastic consumption, demand an end to fast fashion, and invest in technologies that can reduce plastic use. Join me, Mayor Carmen Montano, and the Milpitas City Council in proclaiming April 22, 2024 as Earth Day in the city of Milpitas. And if anyone would like to receive this commendation, you may come up. Well, thank you, Mr. Christian Lorenzo.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to invite the community to join us at Calle Oriente Park this Saturday from 10 to 12 for our Earth Day event. You'll be able to learn about easy ways you can reduce plastic impacts through recycling or source reduction, learn about financial incentives to electrify your home, and take a close look at some electric vehicles that will be showcased, as well as experience a plant-based cooking demonstration. Yay.
Thank you. Let's give him a big old round of applause. Okay. And the next one is closely related, Arbor Day. So Arbor Day celebrates and recognizes the crucial role trees play in our community's health and vitality. Trees not only beautify our surroundings, but also purify our air, conserve energy, and provide countless other benefits. By planting and caring for trees, we invest in a sustainable future for generations to come. Join me, Mayor Carmen Montano, and the Milpitas City Council in proclaiming April 26, 2024 as Arbor Day, and together we can make a significant impact on our planet and create a legacy of environmental stewardship for our children and grandchildren. And if anyone would like to come and accept this commendation, your proclamation, you're more than welcome. And it's happiness again. That's great. All right. Want to say a few words? And just so that you know, so Mr. Christian Dorenzo, he's the Public Works Director. So he's in charge of all the maintenance of the city. I mean, so he takes care of the city. He does a really fantastic job. And the next proclamation is National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. Annually, in the second week of April, we honor telecommunications personnel in the public safety community. National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week celebrates and thanks the hardworking men and women dedicating their lives to serving the public as the first and most critical contact members of the public have with emergency services and are a vital link for our police officers, firefighters, and paramedics. Join me, Mayor Carmen Montano, and the Milpitas City Council in proclaiming the week April 14th through the 20th, 2024 as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. And we have somebody come over here and accept this proclamation. Come on up. Welcome. Welcome. And if you'd like to say a few words, any of you?
Good evening, everybody. Jared Hernandez serving as your police chief. It's really an honor to be able to speak on behalf of the women and men that operate in our 911 center. These are the folks that answer the call first. You don't get a police officer or a firefighter at your house without having first talked to one of these extraordinary individuals. And just to recognize the depth of what they're able to accomplish for our community. In 2023, they answered 23,477 911 calls for service. 95.2% of those were answered in 10 seconds or less, which is far exceeding, excuse me, they make me so emotional, far exceeding the state average by far. That means that they answered 22,350 calls in less than 10 seconds to make sure that a police officer or firefighter was at your house. They're the reason that our response times to emergencies is 2 minutes and 51 seconds or better. It's because of them. It starts with how quickly they answer the call, how quickly they identify the resources that are needed, and also making sure that the right people are getting to your doorstep. They're the ones that call the ambulance. They're the ones that send the police officers, and they're the ones that send the firefighters. And we could not do the work that we do without these amazing individuals. So thank you to our dispatchers that are here, our dispatchers that are operating in the center right now, and those that are off duty today. Thank you for all you do. We really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for all your hard work that you do for our city. We really appreciate it. Thank you. And so now public forum. Now let's move on to public forum. Members of the public are invited to speak on any item that does not appear on today's agenda. Please note that oral public comment may only be provided live at the city council meeting in person. Public forum will be limited to 2 minutes. Okay. Oh, that's right. Okay, we actually, because we just approved the AB 1244, we will ask for public comment. Is there anyone that would like to make a public comment?
Mayor, I have no speaker cards.
Then we have Mr. Montemayor. Did you want to say something? Okay, come on up.
The mayor, members of the city council, city manager and staff, Voltaire, Montemayor of Milpitas. Yeah, I have some thought, but I'm avoiding to touch the ones in the agenda. So I just want to follow up on the 3 proclamations. And yeah, Earth Day, that's a big day correlating that you mentioned about the plastic that is emerged in any mixtures, like not only plastic, but all the non-biodegradable objects. It should not be mixed. It's a big deal. It ends up polluting the ocean and breath and everything. The second one, Arbor Day, yes. Yeah, one of the topics that we had before is to have Milpitas one of the best city when it comes to the flowers. I'm losing the name of the flower that we had. So yeah, that will make if we have a planting season, then we should be have also a reforestation. In other words, we replace the old trees of the streets. That's one. The third is the national public and safety. I always observe the peace officers, the police, the firemen. They're always prompt. I believe it's not only 90%, 92% that I heard. They're always there. They're doing good. They are prompt, and you cannot compare the peace and order in Milpitas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montemayor. Okay. And so now we will, if there's anyone else that would like to say anything,
I have one hand raised in Zoom, Mayor.
okay,
And that is going to be Pushti Mokani.
welcome.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Pushti Mokani, and I am a current 8th grader at Thomas Russell Middle School. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. Today, I am here to talk about an upcoming walkathon hosted by BAPS Charities. BAPS Charities is a global charity active in 9 countries across 5 continents, committed to community services, educational services, health and wellness, environmental initiatives, and humanitarian relief. One very inspiring thing about BAPS Charities is that it is completely driven by volunteers who dedicate a portion of their lives in the selfless service of others, both in their local neighborhoods as well as globally. This can definitely be seen in the BAPS Charities Walkathon. The Walkathon is a national event that takes place in over 76 locations with more than 23,000 participants. These walkathons help beneficiaries that have included the American Heart Association and the Nature Conservancy. In past years, the BAPS Charities Walkathon has helped the Nature Conservancy plant a total of 361,000 trees. Specifically in the Bay Area, the Milpitas chapter of BAPS Charities has been organizing walkathons for over 18 years to support local schools, law enforcement civic activities, hospitals, national health organizations, and conservation groups, as well as beneficiaries such as the American Heart Association, South Asian Heart Center, Milpitas Unified School District, and the Silicon Valley Education Foundation. This year, BAPS Charities recognizes that there are many causes that need funds to keep flowing, and this year's beneficiaries include South Asian Heart Center and City Serves. The walkathon to support these causes will be held at Lake Elizabeth Park in the city of Fremont on Saturday, April 27th. This event is open for everyone, and hence I would like to invite the entire city to join us. To find out more about the walkathon, please visit www.bapscharities.org. In conclusion, I would like to thank the offices of the City of Milpitas for allowing me to speak to you about the walkathon. And I would also like to thank the many officials from various cities who have come out in support of the walkathon by walking with us. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Pushti. And now we're moving on to conflict of interest, announcement of conflict of interest and campaign contributions. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. I ask you, Mayor, and each of the council members whether he or she has any financial or personal conflict of interest related to any of the items on tonight's agenda.
Councilmember Barbadillo,
None.
Councilmember Leanne, Councilmember Fan,
None.
Mayor Montano.
And I'm a none.
Thank you. I'd also like to ask each member of the Milpitas City Council to please disclose any campaign contribution of $100 or more received within the last 12 months from any of the parties entering into contracts with the city on tonight's agenda, or contributions received from the development project applicant for the development project on tonight's agenda.
Councilmember Barbadillo,
None.
Councilmember Leanne,
None.
Councilmember Fan,
None.
Mayor Montano.
And I'm none. Thank you. And now moving on to our council code of conduct. Would any
Mayor,
council,
before we move on, I believe there's something Councilmember Leanne wanted to address.
okay, so Councilmember Lynn, we'll go ahead and have your comments.
Thank you, Mayor. This is regarding to item C15, my involvement with MCEF. So by the time we vote on that item, I will recuse myself. Thank you.
For item 15, you said?
C15.
15, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we will move on to the code of conduct. Is there any of our council members that would like to recite the code of conduct? Councilmember Barbadillo?
The Milpitas City Council Code of Conduct. Be respectful and courteous. Model civility. Avoid surprises. Praise publicly and criticize privately. Focus on the issue and not the person. Refrain from using electronic devices while on the council days. Disclose conflicts of interest and affiliations related to the agenda items. Separate governing from campaigning. The council speaks with one voice after making policy on issues. Respect the line between policy and administration. And council will hold one another accountable to comply with this code of conduct.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Barbadillo. And so now moving on to the approval of the agenda. Is there anyone that would like to make any changes before we go on to making a motion? Saying none.
Yes, Mayor, just with regard to the consent agenda today, given Councilmember Leanne's recusal on item C15, we'll ask that a separate vote be taken on C15 so you can vote on the consent agenda. And then afterwards, Councilmember Leanne can recuse herself and vote on C15 separately.
Okay, yeah. So right now we're making the approval for the agenda and she will recuse herself on the consent calendar. So I need a motion for to approve the agenda. Is there, and we have Councilmember Barbadillo. Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
To move as stated by the city attorney.
Is there a second? And
Second.
was a motion by Councilmember Barbadillo and seconded by Councilmember Leanne. And so now we call for the vote.
Councilmember Barbadillo,
Aye.
Councilmember Leanne,
Aye.
Councilmember Fan,
Aye.
Mayor Montano.
And I am an aye. Thank you. So now moving on to the consent calendar. Staff, do you have any comments on the consent calendar, City Manager?
Yeah, just following up on the comments from the city attorney is Councilmember Leanne has indicated that she will recuse herself on C15. Procedurally, I suggest if there are no other changes, that the council take one vote on the consent calendar and then items C1 through C14, and then take a separate vote on C15 so that Councilmember Leanne may recuse herself on that item.
Okay, so the consent calendar as proposed is just to pull that C15. And is there anybody else that would like to pull any of the other items? Not, is there a motion to accept the calendar, consent calendar as is, except for C15? We have Councilmember Barbadillo.
All right, so the motion I'm moving is as stated by the city manager. Yes, so I moved that.
Yes, that would include items C1 through C14.
Yes, and exclude C15.
Yeah, and I neglected to say, and then we can take item C15 immediately thereafter, as there's no questions about it, it's just a recusal, so we don't need to wait till the end of the meeting.
All right, I'm fine with that if that's.
Okay, so it was,
Thank you.
so it was a motion to approve the consent calendar minus C15, that's C1 through C14, and then it was it's seconded by
Second.
Councilmember Lynn. So this call for the vote?
Mayor, prior to taking the vote, we need to call for public comment.
Oh, that's right. Okay, public comment. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item?
Voltaire Montemayor or Milpitas. Yeah, we were just trying to avoid confusion on, I'm not saying the wordings is perfect already, but we don't want confusion, right? Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? In the audience? No one? Okay, so we're going to. Anyone from Zoom?
There are no hands raised in Zoom. Thank you.
Okay, so we will go ahead and take the vote.
Councilmember Barbadillo,
Aye.
Councilmember Leanne. Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
Mayor Montano.
And I am an aye. And you did say, it's just, do you want to say it again? Councilmember Lynn, she voted for that. Okay, so now moving on to the item C15. So is there a motion to have Councilmember Lynn recuse herself from that? Okay, well, we'll just have a motion just for the item for that C15. Do we have to vote on this? Okay, take for the vote. No, we have to wait till Councilmember Lynn comes back. Oh, actually, she had to leave. That's right. Okay, so is there a public comment on this item? On C15? Mr. Montemayor?
Yeah, just to follow up, I know it's very clear if I understood it right. It's an annual fundraiser on April 26th. And anyway, the amount is affordable. And I don't know, I think it's just we approve yearly in my understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montemayor. Is there anyone else that would like to make any comments on item C15?
And I have no hands raised in Zoom.
No one on Zoom? Okay. Okay, so now we will make a motion. Is there anyone that'd like to make a motion? We have Councilmember Barbadillo. Would you like to make a motion?
So I moved to approve a donation request of $500 for Milpitas Community Education Endowment Incorporated for their annual fundraiser on Friday, April the 26th, 2024.
And thank you for that, and I will second that. So let's call for the vote.
Councilmember Barbadillo,
Aye.
Councilmember Fan,
Aye.
Mayor Montano.
And I am an aye. Thank you. Okay, we can, Councilmember Lynn, you can come back. All right, so all the items from C1 to C14 and also now C15 have been approved. And so now we will go on to public hearings. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor Montano. Our first public hearing item tonight, item 16, is a site development permit, density bonus permit, and an environmental assessment for a multifamily residential project down at 1300 South Main Street. This would include 118 below market rate units and as well as associated site improvements. So I believe we have our acting senior planner, Avery Stark, here to provide. He will be joining us online. We also have our planning director, Jay Lee, in the chambers tonight. We'll turn the time over to Avery for the staff report.
Thank you, council members, mayor, fellow staff, and residents of Milpitas. As mentioned, the item before you is a request for a development application from AMG for the property located at 1300 South Main Street. Next. The application is for a number of different entitlements. As mentioned, a site development permit, a state density bonus permit, an environmental assessment to allow the development of two separate multifamily residential buildings. Developer proposes a total of 118 units, 94 of which are for rent at the lower income level, and 22 of which are for rent at the moderate income level. This allows the applicant to invoke state density bonus law pursuant to Government Section Code 65915. The project will also include 39 vehicular parking spaces, a community garden, and associated site improvements on a roughly 0.96 acre site located at 1300 South Main Street. And by invoking the state density bonus law, the developer is eligible for concessions, waivers, and parking standard reductions that are different from the city standards. Next. On February 8th of 2021, the applicant submitted a notice of intent to the planning department stating its intent to seek streamlined ministerial approval under Senate Bill 35. Later in November of that same year, the applicant submitted the pre-application to develop the two multifamily residential buildings. The applicant asserted that the project qualified for the Senate Bill SB 35 status. On February of 2022, the City Council of Milpitas conducted a public oversight meeting to discuss the project. And at that meeting, it was determined that the project was SB 35 compliant, but requested that AMG consider modifying the project to incorporate the following: adding some on-site parking, creating a rideshare drop-off and vehicular parking space, installing digital surveillance such as security cameras within the project site, providing some open space, and consider a portion of the property to be used as a community garden. In January of 23, the applicant submitted the formal discretionary application for the subject project, the item before you this evening. And at its meeting of March 27 of 24, the Planning Commission voted 6-1 in favor of the project, recommending that the City Council approve. Next. Here we have a satellite view of the lot outlined in blue, identified by the project site logo there. The project site is a rectangular lot located immediately southeast of the intersection of South Main Street and Great Mall Parkway, across the street from the VTA Great Mall Station. And the site is currently occupied by a one-story light industrial building that is proposed for demolition as a part of the building permit process. Next. The project site is located within the Milpitas Metro Specific Plan, otherwise referred to as the MMSP. The specific plan designation is multifamily very high residential, and the current zoning designation is multifamily very high residential within the transit-oriented development overlay, or R4 TOD. Next. Here we have the project site at a 90-degree angle for reference. The project site again requires a site development permit to develop the 118 residential units. Building A on the left side of your screen will consist of 45 residential units with a gross floor area of roughly 62,000 square feet. And building B to the right of your screen will include a total of 73 units and a gross floor area of roughly 80,000 square feet. The overall mix of the building will consist of 15 studios, 39 one-bedrooms, 34 two-bedrooms, and 33 bedroom units. The project proposes to dedicate 100% of the total units, 94 again to low income and 22 to moderate income, with the exclusion of the two managers' units as affordable for lower income households. The project will have one access driveway from South Main Street to access the resident and guest parking located below there in Building A and Building B. Building A, for reference, has 15 parking spaces, and Building B has 24 parking spaces. Next. This table, along with the following three tables of the presentation and table 4 of the staff report and the AR, demonstrate that the project is consistent with most of the applicable development standards within the R4 TOD. And where the project is not in compliance with those standards, the state density bonus law requires that the city grant appropriate concessions and waivers for qualifying projects. In addition, the City of Milpitas Affordable Housing Ordinance provides waivers for qualifying projects, and I will discuss those further in the presentation. Next. This is a continuation of the R4 TOD development standards outlining the required, proposed, and compliant status. And then next. And again, one more table, again, still table 4, outlining the R4 TOD and the project's compliance or request for waivers or concessions identified in the right-hand column. Next. Following the passage of California Senate Bill 330, or referred to as SB 330, the City of Milpitas is required to adopt objective design standards that streamline the housing development and review process to ensure high-quality design and facilitate the efficient delivery of new residential units. Senate Bill SB 330 defines objective standards as a standard that involves no personal or subjective judgment by a public official, and that is uniformly verifiable by reference to an external and uniform benchmark or creation available and knowable by both the developer, applicant, or proponent, and the public official before submittal of the application. Next. So what this means in terms of this project, in terms of objective design standards, that the project was considered a large mid-rise building type. Staff reviewed the project's conformance to several different quantifiable design standards, including site planning, site design, building elements, and usable open space. As demonstrated in the attached objective design standards checklist, the project is consistent with most of the applicable objective design standards, or ODS, and where the project is not compliant with the objective standards, the state density bonus law requires the city to grant appropriate concessions and waivers for qualifying projects. These are outlined in Table 5 of the state density bonus concessions, waivers, and incentives. And in conclusion, the project is considered to be compliant with the objective design standards because it conforms to all ODS applicable standards other than those that the applicant has requested be waived by the state density bonus law. Next. The proposed 6-story multifamily residential building maintains a strong relationship to the street, and its primary entrances are orientated towards the street of South Main Street. The building's design features exterior stucco walls, vinyl windows, accented with metal frame awnings along the ground floor, and along with aluminum storefront window systems at all entrances. The project design will further strengthen the identity of the existing neighborhood and achieve compatibility and aesthetic harmony with the surrounding developments. Next. Here we have a landscape plan for the proposed site. Also features an approximately 625 square foot outdoor play area, an 850 square foot entrance plaza with benches and tables, a roughly 1,300 square foot leasing office with the attached mailroom, and a 1,200 square foot exercising room on the second floor of Building B. There's communal laundry rooms on each residential floor, and there'll be 26 long-term bicycle parking stalls located within the two buildings and 20 short-term bicycle parking stalls along South Main Street. There'll be new landscaping throughout the entire project site and in between the buildings, and a community garden at the north end of the site. Next. Density bonus. To encourage affordable housing production, the state density bonus law allows a developer to receive a density bonus on other incentives, such as concessions, waivers, parking reductions, when affordable housing is incorporated within a project. The density bonus is a state mandate, and any project that meets the requirements of this state law is entitled to receive the incentives associated with it. The City Council, after recommendation by the Planning Commission, may authorize an increase in allowable dwelling unit density for those residential projects that assist in meeting the lower income or senior housing needs of the community. And the Planning Commission and the City Council make a finding that the developer has complied with the requirements of the state density bonus ordinance of Chapter 10 of the City Council, may award the density increase with the approval of the project. Next. Just going to talk briefly about the difference between a concession and a waiver. Again, the state density bonus law prohibits the jurisdiction from requiring a developer to meet certain objective design standards, such as setbacks, heights, or required parking spaces. The concession is a key aspect of the law. It is applicable when an applicant or developer can demonstrate the relief of the standard results in an actual, identifiable cost reduction. This reduction aids the developer in lowering the cost of development to produce the lower income units. Waivers reduce additional development standards, but waivers must be justified by showing that the elimination of a physical impediment to the construction of the development that the applicant would otherwise be permitted to build. All reviewing departments, including building, fire, engineering, police, have reviewed the plans with the proposed setback waivers and reduced guest parking numbers and found that there's no public health or safety concerns at this time. Next. Here we have a table of the unit configuration and affordabilities between the two buildings. Since 100% of the units in the development exclusive of the two managers' units are for lower income households, and no more than 20% of the units are for moderate income households, the density bonus shall be an increase of 80% over the maximum allowable density of 85 dwelling units per acre under the metro-specific plan. All of the units, again, with the exception of the manager's units, will be reserved for lower income households, 94 to lower income and 22 to moderate income. The project will fully comply with the city's affordable housing ordinance as well. The city must grant appropriate waivers and concessions requested by the applicant for qualifying projects under the state density bonus law, unless there is an unmitigatable specific adverse health or safety impacts. It is important to note that the developer is eligible for a total of 5 concessions and unlimited waivers under the state density bonus law. Next. The next 3 tables will outline both the state density bonus concessions and then waivers, and then the affordable housing waivers that the applicant has requested. This is also found in table 5 of the staff report, and it just demonstrates the requested regulatory concessions and the standards. And these concessions are all allowed under the state density bonus law. It must be granted by the city unless it finds, based upon substantive evidence, that the waiver would have a specific adverse impact to the public health or safety. And the majority of the concessions, as you can see on the screen, are related to objective design standards, which are eligible for concession under state density bonus law. Next. Here we have the waivers for the development standards as well. Again, 3 of which are for objective design standards. These are also allowed under state density bonus law when they physically prevent the development and must be granted by the city unless the city finds upon substantive evidence that the waiver would have a specific unmitigatable adverse impact on the public health or safety and welfare. Next. In addition to the concessions that may be provided pursuant to state density bonus law, the applicant provides affordable units in excess of 20% of the total number of units in the development. And as such, the planning director shall grant additional waivers listed in the Milpitas Affordable Housing Ordinance that can help increase the feasibility and construction of the affordable units. The applicant has chosen 5 waivers outlined in Table 7 of the staff report and on the screen in front of you. And the standards are focused on primarily looking at front and side yard setbacks to help combat the irregular shape, size, and dimensions of this lot, and a reduction to on-site amenity space to reduce the effective need for greater long-term bicycle parking within the 2 buildings. Next. Going to talk briefly here about development fees. The applicant will be required to pay the following planning development impact fees. Based on the approval for the development of 118 units, the estimated TADF fee for the project, which stands for the Transit Area Development Impact Fee, is roughly $5,906,608. That TADF fee accounts for a percentage of the parkland fee. And because the applicant is paying this fee, no additional parkland fee is required. In addition, the applicant is seeking a public art exclusion, as specified in the municipal code section related to public art, which shall not apply to an affordable housing development with a minimum of 20% affordable housing units if the developer and/or owner demonstrates to the satisfaction of the city council that said requirements would cause the development project not to be economically feasible. This is a letter outlined in the attachments to the agenda report that you received. Next. A notice was published in the Milpitas Post on April 5th of 2024, and 2 signs were placed on the property of April 5th of 2024, notifying the public of the proposed project. The city also sent out roughly 367 postcards informing residents and property owners within a 300-foot radius of the property site. The planning department to this date has only received 1 letter in support of this project, and should be attached to your packet. Next. Just going to briefly talk about a few conditional approval COAs, as we refer to them, modifications from the Planning Commission's approval and recommendation to Council that the applicant has requested be considered as a part of Council's review and discussion and decision this evening. And staff is in alignment with these requests and proposing the following, primarily focused on shifting the burden of payment of development fees to the prior to the issuance of any certificate of occupancy, tentative or final, versus at the point of building permit submittal. Again, this just helps with the feasibility of the project in delaying still the fees that the city will receive for all related review and impact fees, but towards the end of the project before occupancy can be issued, before anyone can move in. That applies to the site development number 25, condition number 25, the planning department's conditions. Condition number 28, again, moving the payment of the TADF fee prior to the issuance of any certificate of occupancy, tentative or final. Number 90 addresses an engineering department condition, moving it from the to the prior to first occupancy section, and the engineering department accepts and approves of this revision. A request for condition 107 addressing a LOMAR, and that a sentence will be added that lack of documentation will not preclude occupancy release. The federal government, in terms of FEMA, is in a place where they're not receiving requests or waivers for LOMARs and CLOMARs, which is a requirement, if necessary, to be waived from the flood zone. And so the engineering department is acknowledging that because they cannot actually submit the request, that lack of that documentation would not preclude occupancy, but that at such time when FEMA letters are being received, the city will begin processing it as necessary. And then condition 115 is just simply moving the payment of any impact fees associated with stormwater, water connection fees, sewer connection fees, and again, the payment of the FEMA zone designation letter to the prior to the issue of a certificate of occupancy, either tentative or final. Next. Lastly, the project has been carefully analyzed against the state law, the general plan, the metro-specific plan, objective design standards, and the zoning ordinance, which includes findings that require and include a compatible design with the neighborhood projects and neighborhood surrounding areas. Staff has concluded that the project is consistent with the goals and policies of the general plan, the metro-specific plan, and objective design standards and relevant zoning ordinance sections. For components of the project that are non-consistent, they have been remedied with the allowable waivers and concessions per state density bonus law and the Milpitas Affordable Housing Ordinance. Moreover, the city has not found any substantial evidence to suggest the requested concessions or waivers of either the state density bonus law or the Milpitas Affordable Housing Ordinance would not result in any actual identifiable cost savings, and that these savings are crucial in providing the proposal level of affordability and making the project more accessible to the community. Next. Upon review of the application for the proposed project, the city determined that the project is exempt from CEQA per section 15332 of the CEQA guidelines, which is commonly referred to and used for infill development projects, as the project site is under 5 acres and is surrounded by existing development, has utilities and infrastructure, and does not cause any significant impacts to traffic, noise, air quality, or water quality. And the project does not hold the value of any endangered or threatened biological species. The prepared CEQA memorandum is included as attachment A and the supporting technical studies in attachment C of the AR. Next. In closing, staff recommends that the City Council conduct a public hearing and then move to close the public hearing following comments. Consider the project to be categorically exempt from environmental review under the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15332, otherwise known as Class 32 infill projects. And as a separate and independent basis, section 15183 project is consistent with the community plan, general plan, zoning, and adopt a resolution to approve site development permit number SD 22-005, density bonus number DB 23001, and environmental assessment number EA 23-0015, subject to the findings and conditions of approval. This concludes staff's portion of the presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I also know that we have AMG's representative Jean in the audience this evening, along with their staff on Zoom, if the council has any further questions for the applicant. And they have not prepared a presentation at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stark. So now we will open the public hearing and call for comments. Anyone from the public?
I have no public speaker cards.
We have Mr. Montemayor.
I couldn't catch the right tempo one. But anyway, this is Voltaire Montemayor Milpitas. I think I was here since the beginning of the application for the permit. And I think I nodded, okay, we'll see, 6-1 or so. 6 favor, 1 maybe beyond doubt. But I think it's convincible. Or I mean, we could convince the one, but leave it that way. Yeah, I was comparing before that this could be equivalent to San Francisco's walking people, Santana Row, Tokyo, then Main Street. This is a big development. Maybe one of the minors or the one is we may need manual trafficking there because it will boom. I will play chess around it. I will sing. Because I think he was presented that way before in my analogy. So I favor this. I think for me, it's been there. I think it's been there waiting for approval. So it should be a very good project for Milpitas. I think the almost 6 million is the positive one. And aside is kind of holding it, and then there is the waiver. I don't know if those are positive. Maybe the negative part is the traffic portion again eventually. But I think to compete with our cities, adjacent cities, For me, I'm okay with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montemayor. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. And I would like to invite the developer AMG representative. Would you like to come and say a few words before the council, before we go into deliberation? Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Gene Broussard. Thank you for inviting me up. The reason that we did not prepare any materials is because Avery does such a thorough staff report and we kind of knew beforehand. It's very long, detailed, and diligent, but we just want to thank staff. And I'm here for any questions that you have either now or once you close the forum to go through the project as you go through it. But I'm here to answer anything.
Thank you for that. So now we'll move on to our deliberation on this with the council members and asking for any questions from the council members on this project. Anyone would like to say anything? Oh, I didn't see a council member, Babaji.
Yeah, this is for the staff. Just curious, the location is by Main Street and Great Mall Parkway. I remember a few years ago there was a project that got stalled. Is that the site, the corner?
Yes, this is the same project. It was originally submitted under Senate Bill SB 35. And then after a public hearing of its status, the council had made recommendations to the applicant and they came back and were able to meet those recommendations. And so this project is a kind of a second phase of that project from 2022.
No, what I'm saying is there was a fund project on that area. I'm just wondering if this is the location. So it's by the rail tracks right across the fire station, or it's different?
A different, not across from the fire station. No, this is along the rail tracks, yes, along South Main Street. It is in between the Alara apartments and then to the west, to the east would be the Touring Building or where Trader Joe's is located. So it's closer to where Home Depot is and the VTA light rail station.
All right. I noticed although staff seem to be prudent and diligent in looking at the qualifications, I noticed a lot of waivers and concessions, and I take that all of them are permitted under the current state law on affordable housing and high density.
Correct. All of the proposed waivers and concessions for the state density bonus law are permitted, and the city did not find that there was any substantive evidence that those waivers would have an impact on the public health, safety, or welfare.
Are there any other requests, not necessarily in the category of concession or waiver? Like I saw one, like they're asking to be expressed on.
The only other request the applicant is seeking is pursuant to the municipal code section regarding the public art. And there's an attached letter that outlines why the applicant believes that the development would not be economically feasible to include public art in this project. And so they've requested, as allowed under the affordable art section, an exemption from providing on-site public art and or paying the in lieu fee of 1.5% of the total development costs into the public art fund.
Oh, so they said that 1% attributed to public art fee cost them economic hardship.
Correct.
What's the 1%?
It would be half of 1% of the total cost of the development by the time it would be finalized for the building permit review stage.
Estimate?
And let me see here, I'll get you an estimate, which is roughly I don't have an estimate off the top of my head. Seeing as the applicant was proposing the waiver, we didn't need to calculate an estimate of that fee at the time because they
How
had.
did you arrive at a conclusion that it's going to be economically difficult for them? We don't even have an estimate.
The letter that they provided to the city council outlines their request for said exclusion. And I can certainly, as attachment J, let's see. No, not attachment G, it would be attachment. Attachment H to your staff, to the agenda report. And again, the decision lies within to the satisfaction of city council if it finds what was outlined by the applicant is satisfactory to waive that exclusion for it to be eligible.
And staff have seen this and approved?
It isn't inherently for staff to review and approve it. The ordinance speaks to council making that decision as to whether or not to grant
Okay, can you present it to the screen then? Staff hasn't read it, and let's see.
IT, I don't know if you're able to access the attachments for this project, but if you could put up attachment H of the agenda report. If not, I can read through.
Just that you're asking us for an approval and recommending it, and we do not know the specifics of what you're asking us to approve.
Yeah, we can certainly go through it. So the construction cost again is estimated here at $18,369,000, which equates to a contribution amount of roughly $91,983.43, which would reflect 0.5% of the construction of the development. And the applicant has indicated in their letter to the council that would be a financial burden and would make create a funding gap for the project, which would have a huge impact on the feasibility of a 100% affordable project like this.
All right, just expound on this. Can I ask the applicant if your project is around 18 million, and how would 91,000 for a well-established public art? Right. I think you have to.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, thank you. Good evening. Yeah, I could speak a little bit to it, and I'd be happy to kind of elaborate on it. So I guess from a macro level right now, currently, probably heard construction costs are up, interest rates are up, feasibility for all development projects are kind of slowing to a halt, especially in Silicon Valley. I've heard there's actually like no market rate projects in all of Silicon Valley last year and none to date for construction financing. So currently it's the waters are a little difficult right now for affordable housing developers. And the letter that was presented in front of you on the screen is really enacting a municipal code that your city has adopted for, I think the threshold is 20% affordable housing projects, and we're at 100% affordable housing projects. So each dollar here extremely helps the project's feasibility, which is why we went back and worked with staff to amend some of the conditions of approval and use state laws to kind of defer fees as much as we can to be competitive. So all these fees help our feasibility for one, feasibility of the project, and two, this is affordable housing project. So we compete against other affordable housing developers in the state. So every dollar absolutely matters. And we think given that the threshold is 20% in the city's municipal code and that we're at 100% affordable, we should, be able to meet this requirement for the fee.
Or and I'm just curious. It's all generalities, but they say 91,000 would go to a door, 91,000 would go to a pavement, things like that would justify. Uh, and I'm saying this because I want it across the board, right? It's
Yeah.
a public art fee has been established. As I said, it has a public and community purpose. And I've seen a lot, and I respect the concessions and waivers for these projects as defined by existing rules and state laws. So there's a justification on the 91,000. And help me if what do we do with the public art fees that we collect? And have we granted exemptions, similar exemptions in the past? Probably to the staff and probably to you. So they're just more specific. And I do understand the cost of labor, cost of materials are going
Yeah.
to up. It's just that the question is how would a 91,000 supposedly dedicated to public art would be a hardship to an 18 million project?
Yeah, the fee amount is, that was when the letter was written. Obviously, costs have risen a little bit, so I would imagine that fee goes up with cost because that number does sound a little bit low. So that art fee does go up as it's 0.5% at the time of building permit issuance. I'll speak a little bit to the fees a little bit more. Maybe staff can elaborate on where the fees go historically and if you voted on that. I'll just say that, like most Bay Area jurisdictions, impact fees are high. And that it just those impact fees pay for, city services, like you said, sidewalks, schools, fire, water, sewer, all those fees. City of Milpitas has high fees of approximately $60,000 per unit. I think it was on the screen of the 5.8 million. So all that dollar amount goes to a lot of the services that you were kind of alluding to, but maybe staff can kind of speak intelligently more to previous art fees. Sorry, the mic seems like it keeps cutting in and out.
Yes, so I know that there have been other projects in the past. I think the most recent project the council has heard would be 355 Sango, thank you. 308, I believe both waived their a series of different fees, including the public art fee. I know we have the director of recreation also available. I don't know, Renee, if you know right off the top of your head if any of those projects contribute. I don't believe they did.
I
Good
can
evening.
speak to, well, go ahead, Renee.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and City Council. And thank you, Councilmember Barbadio, for the question. Although I can't recite the addresses of the projects, we have waived the public art fee for previous 100% affordable housing projects. And to your question about where the money goes, so in instances or developments like this, the developer has the option, if the fee is something that they need to pay into or install public art at the value of that 0.5% for the building costs. So some developers install a piece of public art that's publicly accessible that is at the value that is required. Others, due to the proximity or the location of where public art could be, or because they don't have an interest in putting something at their site, they will pay the public art in lieu fee, which goes into the city's public art fund. And the third option is some people split the difference. So in this case, if they owed $100,000, they installed a $50,000 valued public art piece, and then $50,000 would go into the public art fund. So I hope that answers your questions.
Yes, it does. So another question is this project, I'm just looking at the diagram. Does it have a space for future residents to wiggle around? They also, because I see that they also had an exemptions, I mean, waiver or concession with regards to a reduction of an 8 feet pathway because of the peculiar way that the land was as is, right? It's like a triangle. In the diagram, is there a way? I mean, is there something in the middle that its residents will be able to enjoy later on. Because we approved projects across that railroad, and most of them have some either a small park or something in their midst to serve the community that they're building. So does this project have that?
Yes, thank you, Council Member. The project does have a small amount of open space along South Main Street in front of building B, the building to the right side of the screen there. There's a roughly 3,000 square foot area that consists of a turf-laid play area, 2 outdoor dining kind of seats, tables with chairs, benches. There is a prominent, roughly 800 square foot kind of plaza entrance as you go from the public right of way on South Main Street into the main entrance of the building of Building B, where it also has the required accessibility ramps and design to gain access to the building and subsequently into the elevators of the property. And then the Building A, although it has less prominent open space, there is the community garden to the north end of the project site where there are 4 community garden proposed beds within the public site, which would be viewable and accessible from the public right-of-way or sidewalk of South Main Street.
All right, thank you. Nice to know that. Thank you.
Of course.
Is that it, Councilmember? Councilmember Lin, do you have any questions? Okay, so I have a couple of questions. Let's see. So is the project is 100% affordable, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so then 94 low income, 22 moderate. So I was questioning, and I know Councilmember Barbadillo also mentioned this about the tracks, the train tracks that are near. Are you putting in a sound wall or some type of assurance that the residents aren't going to be hearing the train as it passes by?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So the project does not include a separate sound wall, and that's primarily due to the fact that the first floor of both Building A and B, because they have parking in them, the podium-style parking along the backside of that building will be a roughly 13-foot, 2-inch solid masonry wall, and would act in replace of effectively having a separate sound wall along the property boundary. In addition to that wall being a solid masonry wall, there is also still going to be a 4-foot high retaining wall with a 6-foot tall steel wrought iron fence for security purposes, separating the property from the railroad tracks and the Hetch Hetchy right-of-way waterway that's right behind it. But effectively through their design of having the podium parking on the first floor of both buildings adjacent to the railroad tracks, the 13-foot tall 2-inch wall that is of solid masonry acts as a sound wall in effect.
Thank you for that. The other concern I have is also the traffic ingress, that the way that the building is shaped, like more like a 45 degrees, it's at, how is that going to impact it? Can you put a map up there how the of how the circulation will be, people going in and out? Can you put one of the slides that you had up there?
I would ask IT,
Showing the
please,
project.
if you could pull the presentation back up. It would be best use slide 6.
Yeah, because the Great Mall is right there in the corner, and there is quite a few, a lot of traffic there actually, and so I'm just concerned about the ingress and how people get in and out.
Yeah, so can you see the screen there, Mayor?
Yes, yeah.
Here. So there's a little T triangle there. So South Main Street, so this is at a 90-degree angle, South Main Street. There'll be one driveway entrance to both buildings, building B and A. So you will drive through those two driveways. It'll be two paths of travel, so vehicles can go in and go out, and then they will turn right or turn left into either building, and where there be sufficient space to turn around and then come back out the building. So whenever you're leaving the building, you're always leaving nose forward, and you're not reversing into oncoming traffic at any point in time. And that is just really the constraint of the site, and its kind of irregular shape has led to this design. And this design has been vetted by, again, the Public Works Department, Engineering, our Fire Department for services, the ability to provide fire services in the event of an emergency. And this configuration of the units design, the building's design, is adequate for safety purposes.
That was the next question I was going to ask the fire department. So
yes, they done a thorough analysis of this project, and originally when it was proposed, there was lots of discussion regarding the ability to get essentially a tiller in between the two buildings that they could scale either side, left or right, to be able to provide fire service. And along the back of the property, there's actually a small drive aisle there where the trash, recycling, and compost services will be managed and delivered. And so those are also areas where when a fire truck arrives, they'll still have the adequate pull length for a fire hose to be able to gain access to the rear side of the building.
So they're okay with this?
Yes, fire has reviewed
schematic.
With these schematics, yes, and applied the required conditions of approval for fire suppression and safety that will need to be followed during the building permit review process.
Okay, great. And then can you remind me, how many stories is this?
6 stories.
6 stories. And the wall is going to be the sound. There's this, you mentioned about a certain sound wall in the back.
Yeah, so
You
where
said
the
4 feet? That's very high.
The wall is actually, so if we're looking at here building A and building B, along that back parking before you get to the train tracks, the wall that's there that encloses the parking garage is actually 13 feet tall and about 2 inches. And that wall is a solid masonry wall. It will have no windows or door access. We'll have some door access for safety reasons, but it is a solid masonry wall along the back of the property, which in effect serves as a sound wall if they had proposed a sound wall 6 feet to the rear.
So, because 4 feet is not really that high, but I was just thinking about the other areas, because there's a lot of transients that I see there. I live in more or less in that area, and I just concerned that people would be jumping over that.
So they'll still be on the civil pages of the design. There will be a 4-foot tall wall that will be built to kind of provide basically the retaining of the site. And then on top of that 4-foot wall will be a 6-foot fence of wrought iron design that will further separate and provide safety and security from anyone who may be attempting to come in or out of the property. And the rear portion of the building, again, all the doors on the property are securely locked. There is security all around the property and inside the property, and then you gain access by way of a fob. So there is still a tall wall plus a 6-foot high fence, in addition to the fact that the building has a 13-foot tall concrete wall that makes up the parking enclosure. Right.
Okay, good. That's good to hear. The other question I have, and it goes back to the art fund. I know, art, Mr. Broussard, art is very important in our city. It's part of our culture. And I know it's like $90K, right? That's what it would come out to. But I would ask if we compromise, that we provide some type of art, either an in lieu fee of art. It's really important to the city and to the citizens. So making that request that we provide you could put at least $50K in that art fund.
Thank you, Mayor, for the comments. Just going back to the sound study, I want to comment on that. Okay. Because we piggyback the projects within the specific plan, use all the environmental documents to, grant the exemption and everything under CEQA. Personally, we have done a sound study for 2 reasons. One, the building code requires it at a later stage that to the interior noise of the unit has to meet a certain decibel level. So given that our proximity to the rail tracks, we've already done that study.
Okay.
And we
great.
have it, and we've also experienced issues near rail before. So we've done that study. It's not required, but we've done that study and we'll obviously comply with the exterior elements above the first level to ensure that we have adequate sound. And the building code again requires it. The art fee, again, every dollar does count. So is there a way if on one of the elevations facing Main Street, I think it's a stair tower that's kind of more of a blank wall. Is there a way that we can work with a muralist to put a mural on there instead of paying the art fee? And that way we can have some art on the building?
I think that would work out. We do have to have either some art or like an in lieu fee for the art fund. So
Yeah, I
it's
think
very important in our city. And we're
Yeah.
trying to, especially in that area, because that's the Metro Pacific area,
Yeah.
and we have some great plans for that area. And it would really add to that area. So
Okay, we can work on some type of mural. And maybe I'm not sure in the city, is there an art board or is it just once we have a design, how would that work?
Renee, would you like to chime in? She would.
Yes, Mayor. I would love to chime in. So, yes, the developer, you're free to contact me directly and we will work with you on getting what you would like to do out there, valuing it, and then ultimately taking it to our Arts Commission for a courtesy review, because it would be art on your private property.
Thank you. Yeah. And just to be, and thank you, Renee, for the comments. Just to be clear, Mayor and council members, this would be kind of not half, as in we do this and we pay a fee. We just kind of do this art kind of to meet in the middle.
Right, it
Correct.
would, we're compromising,
Yeah.
it's that part of that community benefit
Yeah.
for the citizens of Milpitas.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I thank you for that.
No problem.
So, again, I like this project and I like your color scheme, so thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to say anything, council members? We have Councilmember Barbara.
Yes. Right. I do okay. Well, thank you for the compromise on the art. I echo the mayor. Culturally and diversely, we treasure visual arts and other art-related things in Milpitas. So I do know the response to my question, but it's just for the benefit of the community, right? Traffic and parking has been an issue in the city, and I would like to expound on the issue of parking, although it's well justified. So there's an 118 unit, and that 118 unit will have a 39 off-street parking spaces, correct?
That is correct, council member.
So when you say off-street, would it in the streets outside?
Sorry, off street just refers to it being off the street and in the building. Yes, it's a bit of an oxymoron. It just refers to the fact that the parking will be provided on site inside the
of
two
the
buildings.
building.
Yes,
Right. So I think that's what I meant, that there's
Okay.
no garage going inside. It's just outside.
correct. There'll be two, each building will have parking on the first level effectively when you go to either building.
Okay, and the idea is because it's near a transit area, and that's why it's an exempt, and hoping to encourage people to utilize public transportation. I think that's the spirit of that rule.
It absolutely is. It's to encourage multimodal transit. The VTA station is about a less than 10-minute walk away. And then you have the access to grocery stores, elementary schools, and other services. Trader Joe's is effectively right around the corner from this site. And then the BART station is not more than a 15-minute walk down the way as well.
So the school for this one will be Matos, right across.
No, it would be Zanker Elementary.
Zanker by the Pines.
Correct, which is about a 10 to 15 minute walk, depending on how briskly you choose to walk in the morning.
That's safe to walk there?
It is safe to walk there. The route is identified on our city's GIS maps as a part of the safe walking routes to school. And the applicant has been in contact with the Milpitas Unified School District director to begin the discussions of what the potential student population will look like, begin engaging in terms of paying the required fees to the school board, and then kind of interfacing on any kind of operational questions or things that may come up so that they can safely ensure students are able to get to that elementary school at that time.
All right, and the rule with reduced parking is equally applicable to those projects around the PTA station, right?
Correct. State law under the state density bonus law and a number of other assembly bills, when you're within a quarter mile of a high quality transit corridor or a hard rail, the state actually precludes the city from requiring any parking. In theory, this project could have no parking, but the applicant, through its operational requirements and understanding of the development market and having operated and owned many other buildings in the state of California, recognizes the need to have some parking, and then they've effectively tried to maximize that number by building up the building one additional story, rearranging the location of utilities and equipment rooms to provide the 39 parking spaces we have today in this project.
Okay, I raised that because I remember years ago, not so long, when we approved some projects near the Pines, there were public clamor because the Pines became the parking spaces of those developments. So I hope that we consider that going forward, regardless of where our hands are tied with regards to the requirement of the state law. So that's just the thought, right? That as I said, the questions were to inform the public why this project is being proposed the way it is, why the staff is approving it, and so it's with that information, hopefully when this project comes about, the community around it would understand how it was and it was explained to them on the onset. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Barbadillo. Just to circle back on the art, the mural, I'd like City Manager to make some comments, please.
Thank you, Mayor. For that item, based on the discussion we just heard, I just quickly put together some proposed language for a new condition approval to be added to the resolution for this item. Suggested language be something to the effect of during development and construction of the project, the applicant shall coordinate with the Department of Recreation and Community Services to develop designs for a significant mural on the stair tower facing Main Street, with final design to be reviewed by the Art Commission for recommendation and final approval on design and cost by the City Council, and completion of the mural prior to 50% of the occupancy permits. Something that bad.
Thank you for that. Did the Jean want to make any comments on that? Are you okay with that?
That there's the mic. Thank you for drafting that. I think my only comment is if there's a way to just make it so we can go to the Arts Commission instead of coming back to City Council because of the timing and how long that takes, if that's something that the mayor and council would consider.
Council members, are you okay with that? Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Okay, council members, do you have any other comments? We have a council.
I don't have questions. This is just a comment to thank you for bringing this project to Main Street. This is going to be very, very nice, and it adds lots of exciting moments to the Milpitas residents around May Street Innovation District in the metro area right there. First, when I read this report, I was a little confused about the 39 parking spaces, but then when I read through everything, you comply with all the state requirements and there isn't any other concerns that I have. So thank you for bringing this to Main Street.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Leanne. I also wanted to make a couple of comments. So you mentioned you're going to be providing some type of bus passes, I think, or can you elaborate on that? Because yeah, it's the, I mean, I'm really glad you're putting in the 39 because you didn't really have to, according to the density bonus laws in their state. But you know, people are gonna try to find a place to park and maybe with the transit, some kind of transportation.
Yeah, our current application does not have bus passes for the tenants. It's a pretty significant expense, especially for the life of the project. But yeah, as Avery mentioned, the state is just saying no more parking, whether you're affordable, market rate, near transit, and obviously this is across the street from the VTA light rail. So, you know, if you recall, when we brought it, as Avery mentioned, we brought it before to City Council. We only had one building had parking. Now we have both buildings with parking. So we did our best. It's a really unique site. I could tell you the site's pretty much 1 acre. It's 0.996 acres. On other projects, we are able to squeeze that are 1 acre and rectangle. We are able to squeeze a lot more parking. It's just the site's unique. We did our absolute best. As you can see, it kind of just we get pinched at the end of the triangle. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, the triangle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that you were able to squeeze in some more parking.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank
Is
you.
there anyone else that would like to make any comments? Oh, does Councilmember Fanahan have any questions or comments?
No, I'm good. I really like the project and the use of all the density there. So I'm always an advocate of transit oriented development.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? So I'd like to make a motion, if I may, to approve this project and with the added conditions. Is there a second? Yep, we have Mike.
Second that.
Thank you for the second. And so now we're. All right, now we'll call for the vote.
Councilmember Barbadillo,
Aye.
Councilmember Leanne,
Aye.
Councilmember Fan,
Aye.
Mayor Montano.
And I'm an aye. Congratulations. Okay. So now moving on to item 17. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Our second public hearing item tonight is a resolution approving the proposed 2025-29 capital improvement program. And we have our city engineer, Michael Silveri, here to present the staff report. Oh, we'll wait until we have a quorum.
All right, sorry about that.
Problem.
So, city manager, do you introduce Michael?
Well, I'll introduce. So City Engineer Michael Severis here for the staff report. He's in his new role as city engineer. So we appreciate his staff report today.
Thank you, Ned. Good evening, Mayor Montana, council members, Fan, Lynn, and Barbadillo. As Ned mentioned, my name is Michael Severa, city engineer. Tonight I'll present item 17, conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution for the approval of the 2025-29 capital improvement program. Next slide, please. The agenda for tonight's presentation is I'll briefly go over major accomplishments this past year, discuss the 5-year capital improvement program, summarize city council discussion of the study session in February, and conclude with a recommendation. Next slide, please. The next few slides will review major project accomplishments of this past year. Next, please. The Mobile Emergency Operations Center vehicle was delivered in February and will be used for lengthy field deployments to provide a safe operational environment for public safety staff. The first phase of park improvements funded by ARPA was completed in early this year. The project primarily focused on repairs and replacement to playground equipment and surfaces at 9 parks. The traffic engineering section completed the annual street resurfacing project, which included streets in the neighborhoods of North Park, Victoria, north of Dixon Landing Road, and the neighborhood of Selwyn and Shirley, and also resurfaced Mount Shasta Road. The planning department and land development section worked closely with the developers of Capital 650 and Anton Development to provide public access to their internal parks and construct a public linear park and trail adjacent to Penitencia Creek within the metro specific area. Next slide, please. Valley Water District completed flood protection improvements to increase flood capacity and reduce flood risk for residents and businesses of the Milpitas along portions of Calera and Penitencia Creek. They also completed city right-of-way improvements on the city's behalf. City Council adopted a citywide travel safety report in January that assessed the safety of the traffic throughout the city, which provided a framework for recommended safety improvements. This past summer, the first gateway welcome sign was installed at Arco gas station that incorporates the city's new community mark. And lastly, a filtration treatment system was installed at Main Lift Pump Station to address Bay Area air quality management district concerns. Next slide, please. Now we'll review the 5-year budget for the proposed 25-29 capital improvement program. Next slide, please. Let's take a look at the timeline of the CIP process. At the study session in February, staff presented the proposed CIP to City Council. In March, the Park and Recreation and Cultural Resource Commission recommended City Council approve the park section of the program. And Planning Commission adopted a resolution finding the proposed CIP to be in conformance with the city's general plan as required by California Government Code. Tonight, staff is recommending to conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution for the approval of the 2025-29 capital improvement program. Next slide, please. The 5-year CIP that is brought forward tonight consists of 149 projects for an estimated budget amount of $243 million. The chart to the right is a breakdown of the estimated costs with associated number of projects for each category. The value of city infrastructure needing funding over the last 4 years of the budget is estimated at $58 million, which is associated with projects in the community, parks, streets category. Next slide, please. Here's a summary of the proposed funding for each category in fiscal year 24-25, which will be available starting July 1st. Staff is recommending to fund 50 projects for an estimated amount of $31.1 million, with an adjustment from $36 million presented at the study session and it was adjusted based on San Jose wastewater facility budget forecast. Majority of the funding will be allocated to projects in the community, streets, sewer, water categories. Next slide, please. The next 6 slides, I'll present the 50 projects that will be recommended to be funded for the new fiscal year 24-25. Each table will show the project, the recommended amount, and funding source. In the community category, there are 17 projects being recommended to be funded in the amount of nearly $10.9 million. Here is a list of the proposed funding for existing projects. Majority of the projects are for the upkeep of the existing city's infrastructure. As you review this list, I would like to highlight a few projects. Majority of the funding for the city building improvement project will fund enhancement and expansion of the men's and females locker rooms in the police department. The funding for city building HVAC system improvements will replace 6 units in the sports center complex, which has reached the end of its service life. Also, the funding for the city park rehabilitation project will resurface parking lots at Cardoza, Dixon Landing, and Hall Park. Next slide, please. Here's a list of 6 new community projects. I'll highlight a few of them. The impact fee study and sense of place plan for Gateway Main Street specific plan will be funded by a PDA grant. It will identify improvements, create a basic infrastructure plan for the area, and establish a developer impact fee. Staff is recommending using facilities replacement reserve to fund the replacement of the air conditioning system at City Hall, which has exceeded its service life. Funding for City Hall fountain and landscape renovation project will provide for preliminary design for restoring the landscaping and converting the fountain, pond, and waterfall for more usable open space within the City Hall campus. Next slide, please. Here are 5 projects in the park category being recommended to be funded in the amount of $1.1 million. 2 of these projects are for the upkeep of the city's existing park infrastructure, and the last 2 projects listed will be added to the CIP, which include the master planning for parks and trails in the Innovation District of the metro area, which will also be funded by a PDA grant. And the funding for Cinepark is for the design phase of the playground improvements. Next slide, please. There are 12 projects in the streets category being recommended to be funded in the amount of $8.9 million. 8 projects are dedicated for the upkeep of the existing infrastructure, and 2 projects will be added to this section. Let me mention a few of these projects. Funding for Main Street utility undergrounding is to retain a consultant to assist staff to acquire easements for the necessary undergrounding improvements of the overhead wires between Corning and Curtis Avenue. The traffic study and safety improvement project funding is for planning of improvements as identified in the adopted citywide traffic safety report. The funding for 2025 street resurfacing project will resurface the remainder of Great Mall Parkway and portions of Tasman and Alder Drive. Staff is also recommending funding the design for the installation of streetlights along Hammond Way to improve public safety. Next slide, please. There are 7 water projects being recommended to be funded in the amount of $5.2 million by the water funds, where 5 of these projects are for the upkeep of the existing infrastructure, and 2 projects are related to well facilities to expand the city's water supply portfolio as recommended by the adopted Urban Water Master Plan. Next slide, please. There are 5 sewer projects being recommended to be funded by sewer funds in the amount of $6.3 million. Majority of the funding is for the city's contribution to the rehabilitation projects at the San Jose wastewater facility. Also, there are 2 storm drain projects being recommended to be funded by the storm drain funds in the amount of $600,000. A new project we are recommending to add to the CIP is to study alternative improvements of the historic flooding on Main Street. Next slide, please. Insufficient or no funding available aspect of the CIP. As I mentioned earlier about funding needs, we want to highlight the importance of this matter and make sure we continue to discuss the funding needs in future budget cycles with the City Council as existing infrastructure continues to reach their useful life. Through the CIP process and master planning completed in recent years, we have identified approximately $484 million funding needs for repairs, replacements, and new infrastructure within the 5-year budget and also beyond. $279 million of the total amount is needed to address repairs and replacements of existing infrastructure, such as replacement of Fire Station 3 and storm drain infrastructure improvements. And $204 million is needed to build new infrastructure as identified in master plans and specific plans, such as the Montague Overcrossing Bridge, Main Street decorative streetlights, and park and trail improvements. A few funding mechanisms as examples that can help with the budget shortfalls are continuing to pursue state and federal grant opportunities, establish a developer impact fee to fund new infrastructure within the metro and gateway specific plans, consider adjusting the sewer and water rates every 5 years to keep up with the ongoing upgrades and improvements to the systems, and consider financing measures such as a general obligation bond to fund larger infrastructure replacement and renovation projects. As we move forward, we want to continue this discussion to discuss the importance of where to invest the city's limited capital dollars and prioritize the funding for new and existing infrastructure projects in the future. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry. During the study session, City Council provided insightful feedback on the proposed CIP and priorities. The next few slides are a summary of feedback staff received and including project status or next steps. First project we'll talk about is the ARPA project rehabilitation project. In August of 21, City Council approved an allocation of $4.3 million of ARPA funding to address the immediate health and safety repairs and short-term improvements of parks in critical and poor condition at 20 parks. In December of 2022, City Council awarded a construction contract of Phase 1 for repairs and replacements to the playground equipment and surfaces at 9 parks, which was completed earlier this year. A few weeks ago, City Council awarded a construction contract of Phase 2 to upgrade restroom fixtures to comply with ADA standards, repair aging site furnishings, and improve various pathways, picnic areas, fitness stations, and playground areas at 13 parks. Next slide, please. As there was remaining funds in the project budget of Phase 2, Council approved the allocation of $75,000 towards the design of the playground improvements at Senate Park. Combined with the $100,000 in this year's proposed CIP, the design budget for the project is now $175,000. Staff is anticipating completing conceptual designs this fall to determine the project needs and construction budget. City Library metal roof replacement. $200,000 from the general government CIP was allocated or appropriated into the city building roof improvement project as part of last year's adopted CIP for the replacement. Bid opening was held last Friday, and work is anticipated to be completed this coming fall. Next slide, please. Main Street Decorative Streetlight Project. The project is to install decorative streetlights along South Main Street from Carlos Street to Great Mall Parkway. That is estimated to cost $10 million. The project will be completed in 3 phases over several years. The design of Phase 1 is complete from Carlo to Corning, and the estimated cost of construction is approximately $2.4 million, which is not funded at this time. Staff has secured $500,000 in the fiscal year 24 community projects funding bill through the Office of Representative Ro O'Connor's office. To fund the budget shortfalls, staff is anticipating establishing a developer's impact fee for the Gateway Main Street specific plan in 2025 to fund priority projects such as this one. In addition, staff will pursue state and federal grant funding opportunities. In the meantime, staff is exploring if there's a decorative streetlight powered by solar energy that is cost efficient, meets aesthetic standards set forth in Gateway Plan, meets city's roadway safety standards, and minimizes the impacts to maintenance and budget resources. Upon completion of the research, Staff will provide an info memo to City Council. Next slide, please. The annual street resurfacing program. As part of the PTAP grant program, MTC performs a visual inspection of the city's maintained pavement street network on a biannual basis. MTC reported in December 2023 that the city's pavement condition index rating is 71, which is considered in good condition and similar to conditions in our neighboring cities, City of Mountain View, Fremont, and Los Gatos. The CIP programs an annual street resurfacing project based on recommendations in the Pavement Management Program report prepared by the MTC. The project is funded by several tax revenues in the amount of $4.5 million. The tax revenues are the gas tax, Measure B, SB1, TDA 3, and vehicle registration fee. The report recommends a few funding considerations, which are continue investing $4.5 million annually to maintain the current PCI rating of 71, increase the investment to $8 million annually to achieve a PCI rating of 76, which is approximately an increase of $700,000 for each rating point. To achieve this highest PCI rating of 84, which is currently held by Cupertino, the city will need to invest $19.1 million annually. As the tax revenues are limited, staff will continue to pursue state and federal grant funding opportunities to increase the city's overall PCI value. Next slide, please. Well improvements. Under Title 22, the State Division of Drinking Water requires the city to submit a source capacity planning study to ensure that there is sufficient water supply for the projected growth expected by the Gateway, Main Street, and Metro specific plans. The adopted 2021 Urban Water Management Plan recommends using a combination of groundwater wells and above-grade storage tanks and blend the water supplies from the two water wholesalers to ensure compliance with Title 22. The strategy will reduce the above-grade water storage requirements from 6 million gallons to 2 million gallons as the wells are considered as storage. In addition, wells will expand the city's water system portfolio as they will be used to supplement loss of water in case the wholesalers cut back supply in the event of an emergency or prolonged drought. The city has 3 wells located in the southwesterly part of the city. Pinewood Well is the only fully developed well, but is permitted to use as a standby emergency well, which can only operate for 15 days and no more than 5 consecutive days in a year, as regulated by the state. The proposed CIP will include a project to study the conversion of the well to a full-time well. Curtis and McCandless wells are in development. Curtis well was drilled in 2003, but was not equipped with facilities to become an active water supply. It is scheduled to be in service by 2035. McCandless well was drilled in 2021, and the above-grade facility is currently under design, anticipated to begin construction in 2025. Next slide, please. Tonight's recommendations. Open a public hearing to receive any comments and then move to close the hearing. Adopt a resolution approving the 2025-29 Capital Improvement Program. This concludes the presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation, Michael. Now I will open up the public hearing and call for comments in person and also in Zoom. We have Mr. Montemayor.
Thank you. These are big figures. Meticulous. I don't even have, I cannot imagine how hard are they computing the budget. For me, as long as we are safe for the this year and the next year budget, considering everything, economy, the bonds. Me, I don't have a figure to spread out to the next 4 years after this one. because we are 45-year increment. So they're doing their best. I mean, the group, the finance department, they're doing their best. And we're to have a probable surplus, like we mentioned, from the water, but still um, that's not expected that much. We cannot expect surpluses. We cannot economize. We have to have overheads like departments, salaries, insurances, all those overheads, infrastructures, a lot. So for me, as long as we are safe, we're trying to be careful. Then I go for the approval because we need to have the budget to be spent and not to be held on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montemayor. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this item? Anyone from Zoom?
I have no hands raised in Zoom.
Okay, so now we will close the public hearing and any council discussion? Anyone that would like to speak? Well, since I don't see anyone here, I would like to make a couple of comments. So can you go back to the screen on the PCIs? So we had three.
Slide 21.
One was 71, one was 76, and the other one was 80 something. And so is it the screen or the
Yeah,
slide?
bring up the slide deck.
So are you asking us what we would like according to the budget that we just heard?
No, that was currently right now in the CIP, we are budgeting to maintain the rating of 71. To give you a perspective of what it would cost to get to a 76, that was that was analyzed as part of the report. So we're just giving council some information. If we want to continue to strive for a higher number, of course we do. It requires additional funding.
Right. And I know Cupertino has 86, so they have really ideal streets. It would be ideal for us to have those, but looking at the $19 million cost, that's
It's our budget over 5 years.
there are other greater needs. So yeah, the 71, I mean, but you could strive for the 76, of course, but okay. The other thing, I didn't see that. The other one is the wells. I think that's slide. Now,
Slide 22.
you said that even though the Pinewood or the Pines well it's ready to, we can pump water out of there. However, you mentioned, I was surprised that you mentioned that we could only use 15 days per the state regulations. Is that true?
That is correct. So it's permanent only as an emergency standby well. So it can't be operated as a full-time well.
I see.
So in order to, we have to do, the CIP right now is looking to study what it will take to convert that to a full-time well so that we can meet the Title 22 requirements.
And will that be blended with the Hetch Hetchy and the Valley Water?
I believe it.
That would
Yes,
be
sir.
blended? Okay, yeah, because there was a time in the Pines where that water, I think they did a test, or I'm not sure why, but the water was really bad. That's what I heard. I wasn't living there at the time, but it was, but I'm glad that there will be blending, so we won't have that brackish taste to it. The other thing I wanted to, thank you for that. So the other thing I wanted to mention was, you mentioned about infrastructure cost. So to staff aren't we, I know we're asking for some grants but the Biden's infrastructure act, aren't they supporting more grants to the cities, or do we have to actively go out there and really search?
Thank you, Matt Kano, Assistant City Manager. Now, those are typically competitive grants. In addition to the competitive grant programs, we do work with our legislatures for potential community project earmarks. But Michael and his team just applied for the RAISE grant, which is a part of the infrastructure package with the federal government for the pedestrian overcrossing over Montague. And so that application was submitted about a month ago, right, Michael? And we are actively looking for other grant opportunities, especially in the transportation world, is where a lot of the grant opportunities are.
And do we have a lobbyist or someone, a consultant that does that for us, or do our staff do that?
It's a mix. It's a mix of those. We have a consultant, legislative consultant that we work with, Kylie and Associates, and they represent us in the federal government. And as part of that same agreement, we have a state legislative consultant, Gonzalez and Son, that work with Kylie. And they help us position ourselves for grant opportunities. As far as actually completing and writing those grants, it's a combination. Sometimes our staff complete and write the grants. Sometimes if it's we don't have the capacity or the specific expertise, we'll work with a consultant on a one-off opportunity to do a specific grant opportunity for us. So it's a bit of a mix.
Okay, great. I noticed that also you had phase 1 on the Main Street. And you have phase 2, phase 3, and that was, I forget the cost, but that area is, the full council is really pushing to have that area develop, because we're trying to get more revenues in our city. So it's like when you invest in a money on projects that will generate revenue, and that is one area that we're hoping that will generate more revenue. So that's why we're focusing on that one area to revitalize it, to bring in revenue.
I totally agree. As Michael mentioned, we have received $500,000 with the mayor and council support from Ro Khanna's office. It was technically last year's federal budget, but it was just recently approved about a month ago because the federal budget took a while to get approved.
Right.
That is about 1.9 or 1.7 to $1.9 million short of what we need to build the streetlight portion from Carlo to Corning. We are going to be continue to work with Ro Khanna's office to see if, and other legislative offices to see if we can get the rest of that funding during this year's cycle.
That would be great if we could get at least phase 1 going. I know that's important for the council. But this is a great, thank you so much for your presentation. You did a great job. And if there's no more questions, any questions from the council members? Gary, okay. So this is just informational. So I need a motion. So we have a motion from Councilmember Barbadillo.
Right. I move to adopt a resolution approving the 2025-2029 capital improvement program.
Okay, and we have
I second that.
motion by Councilmember Barbadillo and a second by Councilmember Lynn. And now it's time for the vote.
Councilmember Barbadillo,
Aye.
Councilmember Lian,
Aye.
Councilmember Fan,
Aye.
Mayor Montano.
And I am an aye. Thank you very much. It's unanimous. Okay, so now we're moving on to no items of consent calendar. We already done that. So now announcements and future agenda items. So City Manager, do you have any?
I have two quick announcements, Mayor. The first one, this Saturday, April the 20th from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. A local nonprofit called Social Ground will be hosting a small business expo. And the details are available on the website. And I also sent those to the council in an email. This is an opportunity for networking and learning, sharing ideas among small businesses. Our procurement team will be there with a table to talk to the small businesses about doing business with the city. And the speakers will include our Economic Development Director, Alex Andrade, as well as Assembly Member Alex Lee and Fiona Ma from the Office of the State Treasurer. So we look forward to that expo this Saturday. And also, I wanted to let you know that starting tomorrow, Daniel Nam and our IT team will begin phase one of the audiovisual upgrades here in the chambers. And phase one will be the replacement of our microphones. So between tomorrow and Friday, they'll complete that. And then we're looking forward to starting phase two at the end of June through the council break in July. And we thank the council for the support of the funding for those improvement projects here in the chambers. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that information. And now I'm asking the council members if they have any announcements. We have Councilmember Lynn.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to let the community know that on April the 28th from 11 to 1, we will have an event. It's called Black April for the Vietnamese community. Thank you,
Okay.
Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, I've seen that on the calendar. Okay, so seeing no one else? Okay, so now I am going to adjourn. Thank you, everybody. It is 9:07. Oh, we have Councilmember Barbadillo. I didn't see you.
Thank you, Mayor. Lastly, I look at the last council meeting and the solicitation ordinance didn't pass. Looking at the discussion, I believe it warrants probably more discussion and see if there are things that we could improve in that and reintroduce the ordinance. So that's my number one. And number two, when looking at the project, the project that was just presented, I saw again the Planning Commission, and that reminded me that they had been receiving stipend, and I would like to explore after those years to see if we can augment and add their $25 or $50 stipend currently to those two.
We need consensus on this. Okay.
For the first item, the solicitation ordinance, Councilmember Barbadillo.
Aye.
Councilmember Leon.
Aye.
Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
Mayor Montano.
Aye.
For the second item, the augmentation of the stipend, Councilmember Barbadillo.
And for the Planning Commission, aye.
Councilmember Leon.
Aye.
Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
And Mayor Montano.
Aye. Is that it? Okay. So thank you, everyone, for the presentation. Staff did a wonderful job, and everyone, good night. Meeting adjourned.